everyone, and welcome to the Wright Perspective. Today, we are going to recap and discuss two movies, actually. Pygmalion, which was released in 1938. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, won 1, and its musical complement, My Fair Lady, which was released in 1964 and won 8 Academy Awards. And so, as you can imagine, these movies are definitely considered classics in some circles. But today, we will determine whether it is a classic from the Wright perspective. We'll do a recap and then we'll discuss plot and direction, characters and acting, cinematography, sound of music, and then we will take a vote using a voting symbol that we will pick especially for this discussion. But let's start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
Hello, I'm Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright. I'm the middle.
I'm Brittany Wright, and I'm the youngest.
Clearly.
Get into it.
Clearly.
Get into it. Hello.
Oh, y'all, I have to say, doing this duo was so fun. I really enjoyed watching these two movies. It was fun to do them together. And I had so many ideas for potential voting symbols. I had to narrow it down to 4.
No.
And that was hard work.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay.
Rapid. I want them in rhythm. Rapid fire rhythm.
Unfortunately, they have to be shared with context.
No. I was trying to save you, everybody, in podcast land. I was trying. I tried my best.
Oh, no.
The first idea is a flower bundle because that's how the whole thing starts. She's out selling flowers, a little bundle of flowers. The second one is a fancy hat, because that to me was really symbolic of how they were showing fancy women. All the fancy women had on hats. And so when she became a lady, it was her having on a hat and really being dressed up. So I think the hat was really symbolic. And then the third one I actually really like, which is taxi. Because especially in Pygmalion, actually in My Fair Lady too, there was something about her riding in a taxi that was her way to kind of say to people, listen, I'm not any old person. I came here in a taxi. She kept emphasizing taxi rides as a symbol of I'm fancy. So taxi, and then the fourth one, and if we were forced to narrow to one, this is the one I would have recommended. It is a gramophone. Because don't you think of the gramophone when you think of the therapy that he put her through, trying to teach her phonetics? Right. It's the image that comes to my mind.
I gotta say that you're 4 for 4. I like all of them, which is highly unusual. Because it's usually zero, it usually would be 0 for 4. But the
February 6th at 8:23 a.m. Oh my God.
I think the gramophone is a little of a stretch.
Okay.
But just because it's very obscure, but even on the Genia obscureness scale, this one is very low. It is very low. Very, very low. But my 2 cents, I like the flower just because I really feel like that was the beginning and the end.
Yes, it was.
Because she was worried, when she started at the end, that whole, I can't think of the word, but when you're having to confront something, that reality of her having nowhere to go, and she was just thinking of it in the context of being a flower girl. So I like that one.
What do you think, sis?
I was thinking the gramophone, but I was also thinking Professor Higgins' slippers.
Oh, sis. I think that's good. That's really good. The slippers are such a symbol of their relationship dynamic. I mean, it really tells the story of their dynamic.
I know, but there's yes, it does in their dynamic, but there's more to her story, even though it's centered,
Yes.
She's still got the relationship with her father. She's got the
Yes.
relationship with poor Freddie.
Poor Freddie.
Listen.
Poor Freddie. He is just.
All right, we're not gonna get into it.
Okay.
We're not gonna get into it. But
as an adult watching this movie, I said, hold on. You don't have no job?
He don't need a job.
And he's never worked in his life. I have to take care of him. I said, wait. I didn't know she said that in this movie. I didn't know.
All right, look.
Okay.
All right, but I think we should use flower just because
like flower.
All three of us like that.
Yes.
And it's just one
and
that
it's so symbolic of her identity.
And she kind of bloomed, and she bloomed like a flower.
We're done here. We're done here.
You could press stop, and that was the right perspective.
Yeah, that's it. Podcast complete. Because, bro, you should take your mic off its stand, drop it to the ground, because that was excellent.
Drop it nicely so you don't have to buy a new one.
Yeah, because they were
drop
pricey.
It on a pillow.
But
drop it on a pillow.
Actually, you know what? Just do the gesture. Do the gesture. That's better. Then nothing gets damaged. All right, let's.
Please put a mic drop in front of his face during that time.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Done. Okay, so let's go to the recap so we can get in here. There's like so much to discuss.
I know. Yeah, I think we should go through the recap fast.
Okay.
Because I feel like everybody generally, but we got to go through the recap. But there's just a lot to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. Okay, so let's zip. So, but just to be super clear, the recap is covering two movies. George Bernard Shaw released a play in 1913 called Pygmalion, so a play. And then in 1938, it was adapted for the screen under that same name. And Pygmalion stars Leslie Howard as Professor Henry Higgins and Wendy Hiller as Eliza Doolittle. Then after that, in 1956, the play, again, the original play was made into a stage musical drama. And that stage musical drama was actually adapted to the movie musical in 1964 called My Fair Lady. And so in that film stars Rex Harrison as Henry Higgins and Audrey Hepburn as Eliza Doolittle. And so the story actually takes place in London and centers around a very poor flower seller named Eliza Doolittle. She's kind and good-hearted, but she's also quite rough, okay? For lack of a better word. Her clothes, rough, okay? Her manner, rough. Okay, and her spoken English is double rough. All right, and it's so rough, she actually catches the ear of a renowned phonetics professor, Henry Higgins, while she's out selling flowers one day. And as much as Eliza is rough, Henry Higgins is arrogant and rude. Okay, he is so arrogant and rude, he actually makes fun of her speech and appearance in front of a bunch of strangers. And when I say makes fun of her speech and appearance, I mean, he calls her bilious pigeon, a squashed cabbage leaf. She's standing near columns, and he says you are a disgrace to the noble architecture of these columns.
So rude.
What is the bilious pigeon?
Save him.
Okay. And so he insults her.
I can't believe you wrote him down.
Of course I did. I promise you.
I promise you. I said to myself, I said,
save him for later.
Okay.
I was like, I am depending on Genia to write all of these insults down. I was like, I'm not going to write them down, but I am cracking up.
And they had to go in the reason I had to put them in the recap is just in case anybody doesn't know this dynamic, they need to understand the kind of man this is. Okay. Yes. And so he insults her in front of like a bunch of strangers on the street, but he also says in his own arrogance that he could teach her to speak English so well that she could be passed off as a lady. And in that moment, it was more just a show of arrogance, But the next day, Eliza shows up for lessons and she thought she could afford his services. Clearly, she was mistaken. Okay. And after a few minutes, after a few minutes of Higgins continuing to berate her, okay, and berate is again an understatement. She doesn't even care anymore. She gives up on the lessons. She starts to leave. And then, in a moment of complete and utter arrogance, Higgins accepts her as a student as a kind of experiment or wager with a professional colleague of his named Captain Pickering. And Captain Pickering, by the way, is not only witnessing all of this, but he agrees to sponsor Eliza's what we'll call transformation. And their plan is to tutor her in every way: speech, social graces, dress, everything. And then in 6 months, they're going to take her to a fancy event and pass her off as a lady with the goal of helping her to relaunch her life as a lady in a flower shop or something similar. But they want to change her station in life, basically by teaching her how to speak. And so both movies pretty much cover that 6 month period. Is pretty much montages. We see Higgins practically torturing Eliza, okay, and Eliza working her butt off to try to please him. Pickering is there the whole time playing second fiddle to Higgins, but he's at least kind to Eliza. It's Higgins that's hurling the insults and using negative reinforcement to try to keep her moving. But we do start to realize that Higgins is that rude to everyone. He is. I mean, his own mother doesn't like him around because of how absolutely rude and arrogant he is. But they cover this 6 month period of her kind of going through the process. In Pygmalion, they actually qualify Eliza as a phenom. They're like, oh my gosh, she's taken to the lessons so beautifully from the beginning. In My Fair Lady, they depict her as really struggling at the beginning. So that there wasn't much of a difference between the two stories, but that was one framing difference. And then finally, the day comes where they take her to a high society event, and it is high society. Okay. I mean, it's international royalty everywhere. Will she be able to blend in? Will they accept her as an equal? And guess what? She certainly looks the part. Okay. I mean, this woman who had never taken a bath at the beginning of the story was dressed so beautifully. We're talking tailored gown, rented jewelry. She walked and danced like royalty. She even managed to mingle without being found a fraud. In fact, the crowd actually thought she was a Hungarian princess. In short, she killed it. Okay. And Eliza and Higgins and Pickering, they go back to the house after the event and effectively wrapping 6 months of concerted effort, okay, with a completely successful event. And then, folks, as a viewer, your heart breaks in a million pieces because you watch Higgins and Pickering congratulating each other and congratulating themselves on the great job they did getting Eliza ready. No one even stops to say, Eliza, your months and months of grueling effort were worth it. It was like she was a toy they were just done playing with. It was just awful. And so Eliza confronts Higgins about it. He can't even get off his high horse for a minute, okay, to even empathize just with the fact that she can't go back to her former life because she doesn't fit in there anymore. And then in her new life, she feels like a fraud. And he doesn't care. Even her father has been impacted and displaced because of his relationship with Higgins. Okay. And Higgins can't even understand any of this. And he actually calls her ungrateful. And Eliza leaves in the middle of the night and flees to one of the few friends she has made in the course of her transformation, who is actually Higgins's mother. And so Higgins eventually finds her and she tells him off again. He still can't even hear it because he feels like the fact that he's rude to everyone, including her, should excuse his behavior. And they do have a moment where he admits he will miss her, but somehow he even turns that into a pat on his own back because he's basically saying, I'm going to miss you because of the woman I've turned you into. I'm going to miss that woman. And so he turns it into a compliment for himself. They go their separate ways, but that only lasts for a few hours. Before you know it, Eliza is back at his house. And in both movies, the movies end with Higgins telling Eliza to bring him his slippers. And it is basically saying that she has effectively decided to accept him for who he is. And they never kiss, I don't think, but it's implied that they will bring romance into their what I would call dysfunctional, relationship. And the end. That's the recap.
Listen, this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, that's the only woman that's going to deal with that. That's
and should anyone?
Only woman that's going.
Should anyone deal with it? So man, that ending, we got to get there.
That's the only woman that's going to deal with what?
With Professor Higgins.
This
know
is
what?
Going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
let's
get into it, y'all.
It is.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. I mean, do we want to start there with Eliza's relationship with Higgins?
I mean, first of all, are we just going to talk about both movies together and just,
however you want to do it? I think we can talk about them both together.
Yeah, let's just bebop and scat. Let's I mean, within the confines of the, of the structure. Right. But I'm just saying, because I'll tell you, for me, this whole situation of watching Pygmalion and My Fair Lady has done two things for me. First of all, I think it's made My Fair Lady a contender for my favorite musical, which has always been easily Seven Brothers for Seven Brothers.
And we grew up watching My Fair Lady, y'all. That's what you need to know. This was one of our mother's favorites. And so we would watch it on VHS, 2 VHS tapes.
VHS, because it was a long.
It has an intermission in it. That's how long it is. But we watched it all the time.
I was on the struggle bus. I
wasn't. Every time I watch My Fair Lady, which it's available online now, but it hadn't been for, until I think it said 2 months ago when it was actually
our time
online.
Was great.
But I have this on DVD, and My Fair Lady is never a difficult watch for me. It's never been a difficult watch. Maybe back then when I was a little trying to act like I wasn't as much into it as I was when we were kids or whatever. But like as an adult, it's never been a hard watch for me. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is it made me understand the purpose for a musical. Because on a surface level, you're always, it's enjoyable to watch people singing and dancing. And so I would just think that was the point. But I'm just saying, I feel like the emotions of the moments were communicated much better in My Fair Lady. Even though Pygmalion did it fantastic.
Yes.
But that whole song of, there's a point where she's very frustrated in the training. And this happens in both movies. And in My Fair Lady, it leads into a song, Just You Wait, Henry Higgins, right?
Just you wait, Henry Higgins, just you wait.
Right.
While you're speaking about her, Audrey Hepburn's voice, I was just listening to it and I was just like, girl, woman, R.I.P. because I think she's dead. Her voice. Unmatched. I was like, this voice is amazing.
Oh my God.
It was so beautiful. Timeless.
Audrey Hepburn's voice, timeless. And she's so tiny. Like,
right. If the camera adds 10 pounds, how much do you weigh?
Yeah, because usually with that.
Yeah, she died in 93.
Oh, for real? Yeah. But
she lived a long time.
But I also just want to say that, look, to me, My Fair Lady was everything a remake should be. Because you had the music to punctuate all the emotional moments that I'm sure we're going to discuss, which it really did. It really did it in a great way, because through the songs, like even at the end, when he's struggling with the fact that, look, I'm going to be who I am. but I'm still going to miss her.
Yeah.
I've grown accustomed to her face.
I've grown accustomed to her face. Hey, bro, I'm so happy you pointed that out, because that is exactly what was missing for me when we did West Side Story. Do you all remember that? In West Side Story, it seemed like they were singing and dancing for the sake of singing and dancing. They weren't necessarily moving the story along or elevating.
I heard your voice in my head, the emotion when I was watching this. Yeah,
I was trying to explain it and I couldn't. But what you just said, bro, they do it in My Fair Lady. Okay. Every single song, that brings it added value.
Yes.
It made sense.
I thought about it. I said, I hear Jania's voice.
You did, Brent?
Moving the story along. Moving the story along.
I'm surprised
I heard her. I was like, this is it.
I'm surprised that didn't come back to me as well. But that
because
makes sense.
It did, bro. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. I cannot agree with you more. I mean, and there was something. So in Pygmalion, they didn't really show that there was a love story undercurrent. They didn't really say. And in fact, in the dialogue of both movies, they reference friendship. Even in the big climactic moments of like Eliza finally confronting him about being so awful to her in the entire process, she says, listen, I don't even mean it in a love kind of way. I just want your respect as a friend. So they don't even explicitly say, I am in love with you. No one says it. No one said it. There's no kissing. None of that. But at least in My Fair Lady, she sings about it. You know, she talks about in one of they were dancing. And she says, I could have danced all night. And it's a whole song where she's sharing kind of like her internal dialogue.
And that song, that song.
I could have danced all night.
Embodies the moment.
Yes. And see, you couldn't get that in Pygmalion. You know, you were making guesses. Whereas in this movie, it was so clear. That moment where it turned for her. And she started to realize she was in love with him. So they did all of this
without changing the story. Right. That's the other thing I really loved about it. The only thing that was a little different is that they went to the horse races in My Fair Lady, but that was better. The scene was better, and it gave a better. But even in the scene, the story, basically before Henry Higgins goes to the climactic event, he decides, let's test her out at a smaller event. And in both movies, they go to a smaller event. And I feel like the one was just a get together in Pygmalion.
It was at his mom's house.
It was just at his mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
Get together. Eliza,
but that was by accident. Story. She brings her there, and the mother is like, "Why are you here? I got people coming over. You need to leave."
She was so funny.
She was so funny, and it just so happened that all those people were coming.
Yep, and
they went over unannounced.
And she told the same story, and she told the same. Eliza told the same story in Pygmalion and My Fair Lady. So even though they switched that.
And the story is that her aunt's roommates very likely killed her because they wanted her straw hat. And so it's so funny because she's telling the story in perfect highbrow English, okay? But she's telling this gutter story, right?
But even
and her grammar was not right.
The grammar was not right. It was like the diction was right. But
she was still using slang.
That done her.
That what done her in would have done her in for a hat pin, let alone a straw hat.
And I liken that to now when I hear people say "spose" instead of "supposed to." When they're like, "You're supposed to do such and such," I'm like, I feel like that's not the word. I feel like that's not the word. But I get your point. I get your point.
No, I just love that. I just love how because when we see remakes, Like a lot of times when we see a remake, we want to just see an updated version. Like sometimes you see an old movie and you're like, it would be cool to see what they could do in 2020
with technology or something.
With this storyline though. But then they'll change something just to change it. You're like, why did you change that? The story is good. Right. Like the story is perfect. Like you don't have to change the story. You don't got to subvert our expectations in this case. We just want to go see an updated version. And I feel like Rex and Audrey Hepburn just knocked it out of the park. They kept the story the same.
They did a great
job.
But
they elevated those characters, man. And because Rex will always be because he and I'm all over the place right now. Let me get focused. I'm just saying,
bro, you're talking about the plot and direction. Yeah, I feel like you're hitting on all the pieces.
I'm just saying, I love how the thing that was striking to me is how they kept the story the same, but they made it better while keeping it the same. And that's not even Pygmalion was already a great movie.
Right.
So you're just adding these elements and then injecting music and color to punctuate everything that's going on. So I just love that about the two movies together, watching them together, because I don't think I would have realized it as much
without the combo. What was your experience like, sis, of like watching both of them together like this?
I should not have started My Fair Lady at like 10 o'clock at night because I was like, I hate these songs. I want to go to bed.
Oh, really?
Really? But I watched the first.
Do you like any of them or just all the songs?
I watched the first 20 minutes like that. And then I had to get off the phone. I had to stop watching it for something. And I had to come back the next day. I was so happy that I watched it the next day because my brain was renewed. And I was able to handle
so that there was a song basically.
You were tired. I was able to handle that there was a song every 5 minutes. So that's when I said that earlier, that I was on the struggle bus. I said, why are we singing right now? I get it. He's rude, flowers, what's happening? Let's just keep it moving.
But it's a musical.
That's why I said, okay, I'm happy I didn't watch this. I'm happy the first 30 minutes I stopped. I stopped after 30 minutes because I would have hated this. I would have came on here like this today. But I appreciated, I loved how in the beginning of Pygmalion, how they described that it was a Greek mythology, and there was a person that built this statue of the perfect woman and asked the Greek gods to make this statue come to life.
Pygmalion actually was the mythological creature who dabbled in sculpture, and he made a statue of his ideal woman named Galatea, and it was so beautiful he prayed to the gods to give it life, and his wish was granted. They put that in words and written words at the top of Pygmalion.
So them doing that, I really appreciated that part of Pygmalion because it made the story make even more sense about what was happening. Because at this point, you really have a blank slate when it's coming to Eliza Doolittle. She's literally not experienced anything that is high class. I guess and not even high class, right? Because her father makes mention of middle class and being ethical or whatever, or moral or something along those lines. So it's not even about it being like just super duper wealthy. It's just her even just experiencing just these regular pieces of life that she's never experienced. So at any rate, I did enjoy both of them right now. Like I thought that they did a great job. The only thing I didn't like in My Fair Lady, I felt like she was struggling and then all of a sudden she wasn't. And so that part, but I just took to myself, I said, it's a musical.
Eventually, she had a breakthrough. She had a breakthrough whenever she realized she could pronounce that the rain in Spain stayed mainly in the plain. That's what you have to remember. Okay.
And that's how it works in life a lot of times. Like a lot of times
it does. The light bulb comes on.
You work until you hit you hit that that turning point.
Yes.
And then after that, you're in momentum.
Your rhythm. Yeah, I can identify with that. I can identify with the breakthrough moment, you know? And so, again,
but even to me, like in that moment, I was like, all right, movie. She just gets it now within the last 3 seconds.
And okay. you know those moments where you need a win. Like you need a win. And it's like you're toiling and you're struggling and you just need any glimmer of hope or success or progression. I mean, we've all been there. It happens at work. It happens in relationships where you just need something. You need something just to keep you going, just so you can fight another day. And when she got that phrase right, the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. They were like, wait. She did it. And it was like a breakthrough moment. And they turned it into a whole song. And I loved that moment. I love that moment because, the other thing was.
Oh, no, I still loved it. It was just that it was really quick. He said a speech and she all of a sudden knew how to say the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. And I was like, okay, then that's a good speech. Listen.
And you know what? And the other thing that they did with the music, in addition to like punctuating these key moments that move the story along, it was that depth of insight into who the characters are, and I think this is something that musicals will always have over movies that are not musicals, because, when you think about the amount of time you have in a movie to somehow convey the entire backstory of somebody's life and their entire perspective, but they're in a moment. Unlike if you're reading a book. If you're reading a book, the author can use pages and pages and pages to give you the backstory or the perspective. Here's where this person is coming from. With a musical, you get a little bit of an opportunity to do that. And the song that I'm thinking of in particular is in the very beginning of My Fair Lady, where Higgins sings a song about letting a woman in your life. And in the song, we learn that he is a confirmed bachelor. And it is because, number one, he's arrogant and selfish, although he has no level of self-awareness and doesn't see himself that way. But number two, we learned that he.
I want to go ahead and disagree there.
Oh my God. Okay, we got to dig in on that. In the song, we get his perspective on women. We didn't get that in Pygmalion. In Pygmalion, we got a sense that he didn't think Eliza in particular was worth investing time in, and that he was a confirmed bachelor. But what we got in My Fair Lady was that he has not found value in relationships with women. He just doesn't see them adding value even to society. He goes through this whole list of things in the song about how women are unreasonable in every single way. And in the song, he says, why can't a woman be more like a man? And he paints men to be like very reasoned and very rational, and women to be completely irrational and not knowing how to prioritize. And without that song, we would continue, I think, to think that a lot of it was focused at Eliza, when really this is about his entire perspective on women that's playing out in this relationship. So that's another thing that the songs give you when they're done right. Take a note, West Side Story. When they're done right, they add that additional insight into like the backstory.
Which I wish we could have got even further into that backstory, because I was like, how did your mom not like you?
Don't even
you
like
were
him.
Raised this way, and it's like, how did you become this person? Like, what happened in your life?
I don't think he's cynical. I think he's just realistic. He's just owning what his experiences.
Bro, so, you don't think that man is cynical?
Well, let's talk about that song specifically. And I mean, which line do you disagree with?
Oh, all right. I'm gonna have to pull up the lyrics now, because you done.
You know what? I don't. We all know that our brother is a confirmed misogynist, and so
no. Don't say that on the internet. Don't say that on the internet. Because that's one of those things that will get out of control. Like,
okay, he said, here's the lyrics to this song. Okay. It's called I'm an Ordinary Man. Okay. He says, I'm an ordinary man who desires nothing more than just an ordinary chance to live exactly as he likes and do precisely what he wants. An average man am I of no eccentric whim who likes to live his life free of strife, doing whatever he thinks is best for him. Well, just an ordinary man. But let a woman in your life and your serenity is through. She'll redecorate your home from the cellar to the dome and then go on enthralling fun of overhauling. Let a woman in your life and you're up against a wall, make a plan and you will find she has something else in mind. And so rather than do either, you'll do something else that neither likes at all. Okay, I'll skip down. Let a woman in your life and you invite eternal strife. Let them buy their wedding bands for those anxious little hands. I'd be equally as willing for a dentist to be drilling than to ever let a woman in my life. Bro, what he is talking about, he's saying that the fact that he doesn't like to compromise is somehow a man perspective. And that
no. He's saying he doesn't like to compromise. But if you notice throughout the movie, he'll always talk about, I mean, you'll find somebody to marry you, or like he doesn't take away from what other people is doing. He's talking about, in his experience, if I bring a woman in here, now she's trying to change my house, which I have it how I want it. And now I got plans for exactly what I want to do. If I have a woman in my life,
he's acting like women are the only women ask people to compromise and meet in the middle.
He's talking about himself.
Okay.
And this is the subject he's talking about in this song is his interaction. And what I'm saying is he's saying I like doing things the way I like doing it. And I know that about myself.
Right.
Whereas a lot of men or a lot of people don't want to accept certain things about themselves that no, I like things being the way I want them to be.
Bro.
And I'm just saying, so he's not, because when he's saying like, when you let a woman in your life, he's saying it colloquially, like if you let it, but he's talking about himself to me pretty clearly, because there's so many times in his conversation throughout the movie where he talks about society and how it works, and he's just outside of it. And so I don't know. I get it.
I see this, and my notes have failed because there were so many times in the movie where he qualified himself as being reasonable. And having everything exactly the way you want it is not the same as being reasonable. But in the movie, but that's not, you don't live on an island. Your life is in relationship with people, but he feels like any bending at all is unreasonable.
And I will tell you this. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, sis.
I will say that Pygmalion didn't do, what was his head maid's name?
Mrs. Pierce.
Mrs. Pierce. Mrs. Pierce and Pygmalion, she was on him.
Yes, she was.
And
she really was.
Mrs. Pierce in My Fair Lady was his cheerleader. And as was the staff, because that whole song, oh, poor Henry Higgins, you're up all night trying to teach her this song.
Poor Henry Higgins.
He's so to the point, he has crafted a life where it is all about him. It doesn't have to worry about anything or anyone else. And to bring a woman into come into that and to disrupt that ecosystem, it absolutely is challenging my perspective on that song, because I feel like Henry Higgins, even though he was singing that song about himself, as Aubrey has made that point, I believe it's a general point that most men feel, that a woman is going to come in and just disrupt everything and ruin things. And so it's a general, it's a general thing, but it's funny though, because in the same breath, at the end of the movie, he is singing a song about how he is going to miss her. And I think that we do not, this is the part that men don't like to discuss. This is the part that men don't like to say, yeah, she's coming to this house and she's changing from the dome to the basement. But man, I love the smell of those flowers that she's brought into the house. I love the fact that she's done these certain things that have made this into maybe a little more of a home. But there are certain men, but to say that out loud,
no, men don't think that.
Just so they do. And because I was just listening to a comedian talk about it. But see, what I'm talking about right now is not, it's not, I would love to always, and what I always make my statements is say, I am not saying that this is for the whole, right? Because also, let's be clear, there are a bunch of women out here who are not stunting men. They do not want to get married. They hate y'all just like they hate, Henry Higgins hates women. So they're singing that song.
He doesn't hate women.
Or their value in their life disrupting whatever they have going on. So there are a lot of people who feel that way about people. So I will say that. But for many men, not all, many men who have let women into their lives in this way, or just another person to compliment them, because I don't want to just say it's all men and women, but for the sake of this movie, when you let someone in your life that you're allowing to come in and alter some things, or to just make compromises with, they enjoy those changes. They didn't know they would, but they enjoy them. So I just thought that part was funny.
They'll say they enjoy them.
But I gotta just one more time try to make this point about Henry Higgins having a low level of self-awareness. Okay. He calls himself patient and kind. He calls himself even-tempered, and he calls himself good-natured. Now, does that, and when he says these things, he's in earnest, like he truly believes these things about himself. Now this is a lack of self-awareness, folks. You know, it's one thing, okay, he has his perspective on a lack of willingness to compromise, but he considers himself to be patient. But it's because he's operating in this truth that says that if I want it now is the right time to have it. So if he's insisting, that impatience is validated in his mind. Do you see? I don't know. He's just so arrogant.
Oh, well, now I am not saying that he's not arrogant. I absolutely agree that he is arrogant and he is not self-aware. I also think that he's a narcissist. So Henry Higgins is 100%. Absolutely a narcissist. But as are most men, and it's okay because society allows it, because it's literally been created by white narcissistic men. And so if you say these things to men, they're like, oh my God, no, it's not. And it's like, but it is, but it's okay. I'm not going to do it. Why? Because we as women, we have been crafted, Pygmalion, let me build the perfect woman. We have been crafted to help men in their delusion. So that is fine. I'm cool with it. I do it. Oh, yeah, you know, that's good that you do that. That's great. Really, in my head, I'm like, but because we've been crafted to let you do what you do, we just gonna let you do what you do. Because that's how we know the system works. There's some women that are like, oh, no, I'm not finna do that.
And what was so twisted, and this is where it was twisted. Okay. It was when she told him off real good. Okay. And she told him off so good. And she told him off good in Pygmalion, but she told him off real good in My Fair Lady, because she added a song. She said,
they definitely took everything up a notch.
What a fool I was. What a dominated fool to think you were the earth and the sky. What a fool I was. What an elevated fool. What a mutton-headed dote I was. No, my reverberating friend, you are not the beginning and the end. There'll be spring every year without you. England will still be here without you. There'll be fruit on the tree and a shore by the sea.
At the end of the movie?
There'll be crumpets and tea without you. Art and music will thrive without you. Somehow
perfect Henry Higgins fashion. Look at the lady I made you into.
As soon as she stands up to him, tells him off real good, he takes credit for her clarity and resolve. And he says, look what I've turned you into. I've done it. And
would she have achieved that if she hadn't met Henry Higgins?
Bro, the point is he discounts her effort in it. Meeting him is not enough. Understanding phonetics
I agree with that.
is not enough. She had to learn it, and not only learn it, apply it, demonstrate it, and to do
and
all
be tested
of this,
and be tested.
Yeah, so I agree. With flying colors, and he's saying, "Look what I did." Look what I did.
You can take the gutter snipe out the gutter, but you can't take the gutter snipe. You can't take the gutter out the gutter snipe. Listen, because she was at that.
I'm gonna need you to read. I feel where you were going with that saying, but I want you to write it down.
You can take the snipe out of the gutter, but you can't take the snipe out the snipe.
Okay, I want y'all to workshop that. I want y'all to work. Listen, it's almost
what
there.
I'm trying to say is that you can take the hood, you can take the hood, the girl out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the girl. Okay.
Thank you, sis.
She because that's what I said at the beginning when I was like, oh, she is, which we know that there are many women that would deal with the Henry Higgins to just say they have a man in their life. But when I say that she's a special type of person to go back to him, I said, ooh, if this movie just would have ended with her not going back, that would have been great because
it wouldn't have been reality. And that's what I like about the movie.
He starts to realize how much he values her.
Thank you. I think that that's the part that we want to dismiss.
Oh no, we don't. We
walking down the street singing.
Can I say one thing? Men of resolve are not absent of the feelings. They love women. They miss women. They can have their heart torn out, but I'm not changing what I'm doing. That's the key. So it's not that he's not incapable of feeling love or missing her. He told her, "I'm gonna miss you." He's not okay, but I'm not changing. So if it's you leaving, well,
you know what? I'll say this. I just feel like this is where it becomes problematic that the musicals are written by men, the fairy tales, Cinderella, written by man. This is the Bible written by men. This is where it becomes problematic because
you're not getting a true woman's perspective.
Well, you're not allowing women to have equal agency in things. And so that's the problem because, what'd you say, bro?
What do you mean? I'm just curious.
Okay. So what so specific to this movie, the message that we keep getting in movies all the time and in life and from our families is that the woman has to come around to the man's perspective. And it's like you're taught that your role is to adapt, woman. Your role is to accommodate. And if anything, and there are the ways that we say it, the man is the head, the woman is the neck. So it's like, even if we say it in all these different ways, what we're basically saying is, woman, don't assert outright what you want and what you prefer. Become absorbed into the man's world, and then find small ways to be able to actualize in tablespoon bits in that reality by convincing him and bringing him along. With the movie at the end, when she comes back, and instead of saying, "Oh, I'm happy to see you," he says, "Eliza, where are my slippers?" He's basically just wants to make sure we're all on the same page. Nothing's changing.
Where the devil are my slippers.
Where the devil are my slippers. It reminded me of the end of Grease. Do you remember at the end of Grease? The whole movie Grease, and we should actually probably do that one because that's one is definitely a classic.
That's my favorite musical.
Okay, yeah, we gotta do that one. But at the end of Grease, the whole movie is like she's from one world, he's from another, and at the end, the way that they're able to be together is for her to come into his world. She takes off her little cardigan and puts on some leather pants. It's symbolizing, I let go of who I am to be absorbed into you. It's the same way women, we let go of our last name, take the man's last name. the woman is handed over by the father to the husband in the American wedding ceremony. It's just, that's what I
now
mean,
pronounce
bro.
you man and wife.
It's like we keep getting these messages that the only way you can be happy is to give in to what the man, to accept the terms the man is offering. That's what I'm trying.
This is why oftentimes women find themselves in situations that they can't get out of, and they don't see a way out of it. And it is because it is literally a culture. And at one point, women, you couldn't do anything on your own. You had to have a man. But now we live in a society where that's just not the case. And because on the side, what men don't understand is that generationally, women have been teaching their daughters, do not do what I've done. Do not be this person. Be different. Go out, live your life. Then get married and have some kids. And then more recently, girl, if you do not want to get married, you don't want to have no kids, that is fine, honey. Still live your life. Who cares? No one cares, because kids are the worst. So like you get these messaging, and women are responding to that, and generations are responding to that. But what is happening is the same message is being given to men throughout the years, and there's no evolution. And so now the women aren't like how they used to be. You mean that they're not taking you, not changing and being the same, and you wanting to be who you are and not compromise? Okay, well, you're right. They are changing then. But it's uncomfortable for many men, because I'm being taught that I am the sun, the moon, and the stars, and what I say goes, and what I say is most important, and what I say is most logical.
Compromising makes me wimpy. Compromise makes me wimpy. Compromise makes me whipped. Compromise is like, evidence of me being less than a man.
I can agree with you in the sense that it would be good to see in media women finding other ways to be happy other than being with a man. I will agree with you there. I'll agree with you there, because if I had a daughter, I wouldn't raise her to be looking for a man. I would just, or a woman or whatever, I wouldn't raise her to be seeking out a relationship. I would raise her to be fierce on her own. And if she happened to link up with somebody who they like being together, then that just happens. But I wouldn't raise her in that way. So I definitely agree in the way that her happiness lies within a relationship.
But bro, part of teaching.
I wouldn't say that for Eliza.
Part of teaching. Let's continue with this daughter, this person. Wouldn't part of teaching her to be well-adjusted, it would be teaching her to understand that relationship is part of the human experience, and that in order to be in relationship with people, you need to compromise and not feel like it is taking away from who you are to compromise a skosh. It's not making you less of a man or less of a woman or less of a person or anything to compromise and find something that can work for both of you.
Well, I mean, it just depends on the circumstance. I don't think there's anything wrong with compromising. I don't think there's anything wrong with not compromising. I think the key is knowing who you are. And so if you're a person who doesn't want to compromise, look, this is how I like it. I like this couch. I don't want a couch close to this couch. I want this couch. I don't want to, I want to go to TGI Fridays tonight. You want to go to Applebee's, so we decide on Red Lobster. So neither one of us, no, I just want to go where I want to go. And if I recognize that about myself, to me, this movie was just showing an example of he's being who he is. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, if you want to be in this world, this is this world. And I'm not telling you that you should or should. I'm just saying, right, if you come to this world, this is how it's going to be. And
what? It makes me think about Eartha. It makes me think about Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt, I don't know if you all have ever seen that video of her talking about compromise. And the quote, she says, a man comes into my life and I have to compromise.
I love it.
We must think about it once.
She was like,
we must think about it one again. Eartha Kitt said, a relationship, it has to be earned, not to compromise for. And I think that Eartha Kitt, in her making that statement, it was this woman coming out and saying, why would I compromise my life, who I am, things that I want, for a man? But see, the thing about it is, bro, or for anyone who may feel like that was a pivotal statement for a woman to make, because you're not taught that. Like I'm saying that, you know what I'm saying? We're saying that in 2021 as women. I was born in 85. Like I can literally say I had to fight against certain mindsets where I have dealt with guys before, because it was like, man, this is all I can get. These are words that have come out of my mouth. And so it's like, you as a woman, you are fighting against so much when in just this unlearning of patriarchy.
I agree.
In this unlearning. And so I see,
agree 100%.
I see both of your points. Well, I see both of your points in the sense that, like, listen, Henry Higgins is saying, listen, if you're gonna be with me, girl, I'm about to be like this.
These are the terms. There's another man in the movie. This is actually giving us a wonderful segue to there's another guy in the movie that is very clear in both movies. That's very clear about what he wants, but he does end up having to change. And that is Eliza's father. So Eliza's father, and only mentioned him very briefly in the recap, he is a drunk that he is also rough. Okay. The man is deadbeat dad. Okay. And he does not have a real relationship with Eliza. And in fact, there's one part in both movies where he like can't even really know what she looks like. He's not present in her life. They make him more prominent in My Fair Lady than he is in Pygmalion. But essentially he ends up interacting with Henry Higgins for a relatively selfish motive. He's like, listen, I'm here. You've got my daughter. She belonged to me, which again, even in like, if you were to just to follow the line of thinking that a daughter belongs to a father, he has not been present in her life. And so even with that line of thinking, sir, you're not checking this box. Okay. But he goes to Henry Higgins, essentially trying to get some money. Like, you got my daughter. What do I get out of this? And Henry Higgins, in that exchange, the father, he ends up making all of these comments about class and morals and money and lifestyle. And they aren't long exchanges, but it's enough where Henry Higgins starts to conclude that the father is some amazing moralist, you know. And what the father is waxing on and on about is middle class morality. He starts to talk about the fact that, listen, I'm a drunkard. This is the life I want. I ain't up to much. And that's how I like it. He's just like Henry Higgins. Henry Higgins is saying, I'm who I am, and I'm not going to change it. And that's what the father is saying. I'm a drunkard, and this is my life. And I'm rough, and I'm in these streets, and this is how I like it. Well, Henry Higgins sends the father's name to some American moralist. And that moralist ends up leaving money in his will for Eliza's father. And so Eliza's father ends up getting this significant regular income from the estate of this passed away gentleman, and is now required to go and give lectures. And he's now actually become a moralist because Henry Higgins decided that was what he was. And yeah, I guess you're like, yeah, he could have turned down the money. He could have said, no, I don't want to do it. But practically speaking, he talks through all of this, through the complexity of not wanting to make the compromise, but doing it because of many levels. It was a wonderful opportunity. And we watch him literally become middle class, which is the one thing he didn't want to do. So I really appreciated that juxtaposition, because it was like,
I got married my wife.
Yeah. He says, Eliza, I'm going to marry your stepmother. Right. And we watched him. He and Henry Higgins had the exact same perspective. I am who I am. I don't want to change. Henry makes an intervention, and now the father's life has changed. So, in his arrogance, Henry has now once again projected his preferred reality onto someone. And I want to point out one other thing about the father character, which I thought was really interesting and complex. And I don't know if I would have picked it up if we hadn't watched both, because it was seeing the story twice that made me realize it. At the top of the movie, Henry Higgins, he says that speech is the thing that makes a distinction between classes. Yes. And he was like, if you can speak well, you can change your class. You can progress in life just by speaking better. But what we learned through the father's story, no one taught the father phonetics. What we learned through the father's story is that it wasn't teaching him to speak that changed his class and changed his trajectory. It was money, and it was someone who was already validated vouching for him. And so I just thought that was wonderful. That Henry Higgins is all like, it's the way you talk that determines your class. But in using money and his own status, he changed the class of someone.
Listen, when I heard him say, I leaned into the screen like, oh, my fair lady's a little more deep.
It's deep
than I remember.
Yeah, it is.
It is very deep, and that's what I'm saying. Like they wrestle with, and it's such a unique movie in that way, because I could say from the other side that there are a lot of stories, love stories that end in these ways that never happen in life. Period. So many of the love stories just don't happen this way. And so many of the love stories, and I know that earlier we're talking about how women still don't have a lot of examples to look at where they were the powerful one and that kind of thing. But there are a lot of movies where the guy has to do something to get this woman. There are tons of movies like that. But what I'm saying is in real life, it's been my experience, that doesn't happen like that most of the time. In my life, in my experience, a woman, what she likes is just what she likes. And that doesn't necessarily always line up with what she thinks she should like intellectually. She just likes what she likes. And so I just feel like that was such a realistic end of the movie, where it was like, because look, he's like, look, man, this is what this is. And where was she at the end? Right where? Right.
It was realistic, bro. It was very realistic. It was realistic in a way that to me is unfortunate.
Well,
it was because so many times I think that women will look at the options that they have available in a moment and say, well, choosing between these options, this is the best one, and I'm gonna lock it.
Now, listen,
and instead of saying, you know what?
And Freddie,
she had Freddie there. Freddie, who had fallen head over heels in love with her, just because he witnessed the incident that Aubrey was talking about, where she was really telling a story using slang, but pronouncing all of it well. And they were trying to pass it off as small talk when really she said she
and it was interesting that they said small talk in the later movie.
This is hilarious.
And they were calling it small talk, but really, so Freddie he becomes completely enamored with her. He's aimless in life because he's just like a wealthy kid. He's got nothing to do. So all he does is hang out outside of her house and write her letters 2 or 3 times a day. And he literally writes a song about it, about being on the streets where you live. He's so in love with her. And so she's got this dote here that don't got nothing going on. And she's got Doolittle, who treats her poorly. And so she's choosing, and then she's got a third option, which is to be by herself.
But he also is secure financially. Doolittle is secure financially.
Well, the thing that would make him insecure,
this is what a lot of women have to go through.
Freddie only becomes insecure financially by choosing to be with her. because as long as he's sitting with in his mama house, he fine.
That's what I was going to say, is that yes, Freddie himself, but to me it was more the trope of
it was love in a way that would be coddling and supportive versus love in a way that was going to be hard with Henry.
Listen, did this movie come out 1958? You said 1958.
Let me pull it up, because
My Fair Lady.
Because there's a third option that she doesn't take, which is just to be by herself.
And yes, you just took the word out of my mouth.
That is a better, more reasonable compromise. Pygmalion was 1938, sis, and My Fair Lady is 1964.
1964. When she says in that movie, in My Fair Lady, in the musical, she says he's not used to working, so I would be the working woman. I would have to work for him. I said, "Ooh, girl." I said, "Now hold on, now, whoa." But this is the truth.
Sis, you can't pick your double standards. You can't pick which ones you like.
No, listen. No, my mindset was like, so he's just not going to work at all. He's just not going.
That's because uncompromising men produce results. So.
But that's the thing. Why is it that now, if she does want love in her life, and we're just using these two men because this is what she has to choose between living over top of something, being the only one working because he doesn't understand work, or being with a man who is financially secure, but he's an asshole.
But he calls her a draggletailed guttersnipe. He called her a draggletailed guttersnipe. He said, you're so deliciously low, so horribly dirty.
So, but this is the other part that
did you write down the one about throwing her out the window?
This is the only part that made me feel okay about her coming back to him, was that there's not going to be peace in that house. Eliza is going to give it to him, just like she did at his mother's house. She is,
bro. I mean, she's never
going to give it to him.
I don't have the one, bro, about the window.
She's going to do what he wants, but also she's going to let him know that you a piece of trash. But I'm gonna still do this. I'm gonna go get your little ugly slippers.
And that to me is what makes them dysfunctional instead of functional. Because since the very beginning, even though he tried to act like he could take some credit for her resolve, like she never had resolve about herself before he gave it to her, she walked in the door when they very first met, and he was trying to call her, told her she was a disgrace to the columns that she was sitting in front of. She said, "I'm a good girl. I work hard." You know, she was like, "You're not gonna berate me. You're not gonna belittle me." And even in their first encounter in his office, he's talking down to her, and she gives it right back. She says, "I don't know who you think you are." And so I agree with you, sis. She in word pushes back, and that's part of their dynamic, is that arguing dynamic. But in terms of her actions, she is complicit with the life that he wants for her, and that he wants.
Absolutely.
But I just think that, because Brittany, that clip that you're talking about is one of my favorites, that clip of Eartha Kitt. And I love that, because me and Eartha Kitt would have got along. I know, because her whole thing is look, I'm me. So if something enters this cipher and it works, it works. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think everybody should be like that. Men and women. Everybody should be like that. But if you're the person who wants, like they say, the person who has the least interest in a relationship will always control it. This is how it goes. So like if I'm saying this is what I got, and you're saying you want to be in the world, then you want to be in the world. And if not, get the hell, get on with yourself.
But you know what, bro? I think that what's happening is that in terms of love and relationship, while what you're saying, it makes absolute sense. And most women don't get to the mindset of an eartha kitt. You're not even allowed, right, to get to that mindset until you're much older, right? Because you have to go through things to go.
You have to unprogram. Oh. You have to really revamp your programming, and it takes time.
I could literally not deal with a man. Okay, because statistically, men's life expectancies are longer when they're married. And women's life expectancy actually shortens when they get married. And this is just a true fact.
Where'd you see that?
Oh yeah, I've read that.
Pull it up for you. I'll give you percentages.
I'll be curious to see that. I'll be curious to read that.
So,
because I heard the opposite.
Well, you know, people will. There's always data available to support any conclusion. Those are alternative facts. People takes one data set, what the other group takes another data set. So I'm sure you're both right.
So, cool. But I will say that I think men are born or are raised with the mindset of no compromise. This is what I want. This is what I'll have. And that's what I'm going to do. As for many women, you have to fight for that. And in the process of fighting for it, you're being told, and I will speak specifically for Black women, because that's who I am and that's all I know. I don't know what everybody else is doing. You're being told you're independent. Oh, that's toxic. Oh, you know what? Y'all are unreasonable. Oh, y'all want someone that's perfect. Did I say any of those things when I'm talking to you about the things that I want? And so I get it messes me up. I will say it like that, because it's like, it's so easy to be like, listen, don't compromise, don't do these things. And we have a lot of men out here right now capitalizing off of that. There are many men out here who are life coaches, and they're capitalizing off of telling Black women, you know what, don't compromise, don't let these men do this, don't let these men do that. All the while knowing this is how all of you are raised. Or I'll say the majority of you are raised.
And you know, and many Black men that don't date Black women intentionally, they will talk about we've been using the word resolve, but like the resolve of Black women. They'll say, because Black women are not willing to compromise, are not willing to accept their terms, you know, they'll say it in different ways, but Black women are less willing to accept their terms. They are less desirable. And so it is a catch-22. It's a catch-22. It's like, once you start to realize that you don't have to accept the terms, you become less desirable. But then you also have an opportunity to be more happy. And it's a shame, because then you end up realizing, oh my gosh, I have the opportunity to be more happy, but there are things that I desire that can only come in relationship. And so I am more happier without having to have these conversations, but I want these other things. And so in my mind, so just to use that example you gave, bro, of like, I want to go to Red Lobster. Yeah, I want to go to Fridays. We both go to Ruby Tuesdays instead. In my mind, the ideal world is, I want to go to Red Lobster. You want to go to TGI Fridays. Let's go to one for lunch and one for dinner. Or let's go to one today and one tomorrow. That's, to me, the life that I want. Or let's order in and get both. You get what you want, I'll get what I want. I feel like the ideal way to access national chain restaurants, but also in life, I think the ideal way is for everybody just to get to not have to forsake who they are in order to be together. And it's when someone says, no, what I want is the thing we're going to do, I think that's where you get in trouble. I think there always has to be a conversation where it's like, how can both of these things happen? How can everybody get what they want?
I was just with you up until that last point, because in my mind, it's like, if that is what this person is saying, then that's just not the person for you. Move on. It's very simple.
It is. But that's when it becomes the numbers game, because at the end of the day, and I think that is what when you think about what was probably in Eliza's mind. Um, you know, in the world she was getting old, and she was
she was
late.
21.
She was 21, but we don't even really know her age because the when she left Henry's house after he was an a-hole for the last time, and she was fed up and she got out of there because they called the police and they were like, how old is she? They were like, about 21. They don't even know, because that's how much they have not been invested in finding out the truth of who she is. The entire time that Pickering and Higgins were with her, it was never about understanding who she was. It was always about moving her into what they thought she should be. Didn't even know her age.
I think there was one time when they got a peek into who she was, which was when her father came and got 5 pounds from them. I think that messed them up a little bit. Like, you gonna tell your daughter
him coming, him not coming. If information about her life happened into the situation, it happened into the situation. They were never proactively wanting to get to know her. They had even in terms of like the possible futures for her. Henry Higgins is the one that had said, you can be a woman in a flower shop. They never said
she did say that's what she did say that's what she wanted to be, though.
Well, it was an option that was put out there. But then at the end, bro, after she was articulating what she wanted, she came up with other things. She was like, maybe I'll be a teacher. She took a moment to acknowledge that there were more possibilities. But before that, all she had was what Henry Higgins offered, is what I'm saying.
I do want to, before we get too far off, I want to correct myself because I Googled it. I wanted to Google it. Does marriage increase life expectancy? And this is from MPIDR. I don't know who those people are. And this is from 2010. Being married raises the life expectancy of both men and women above those that are unmarried. Women are also generally better off than men. Worldwide, their life expectancy exceeds of men by a few years.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things we could go on a whole other tangent about the things that women do to preserve themselves and why they do it. And yeah, maybe we have longer life expectancies, but a lot of our motive for the way that we preserve ourselves is not life expectancy. Let's just go ahead and say it. So it's twisted out here, y'all. It's twisted. Well, but that's why these movies are so complex, and I wish I kind of, and again, ain't nobody got time to do this, but I kind of wish that we had actually read the original play, because all of these are adaptations. We don't even know what the original play was. We are watching a movie adapted from the play, and we're watching a movie that was adapted from a musical that was adapted from the play. We didn't even see the play. So, I mean, I wonder how much Eliza's father was in the original play. I wonder, this comment on middle-class morality and the undeserving poor. Was that in the original play?
It was
I don't know, but I'm just saying that was such a good speech.
It was so good. And it's an actual monologue that's out there.
And that's why this movie,
performers do that monologue.
I just felt like they were dealing with real life stuff.
Yeah, they were.
And in this musical world, normally it's a fantasy. Everything's a fantasy, which is fine but I'm just saying, when I'm watching this, I'm like, man, they are really, and it's funny. That's the other thing. Both movies were very funny.
They were.
I feel
they were funny.
Rex and Audrey both elevated the humor. Is such good. Like, Rex was just nailing the lines. Like, nobody could be offended like
it was him.
Like Rex. Rex would be like, how dare you? Like when she was talking about at the end after the ball, she was giving him, she was trying to figure out what the clothes she could take when she leaves, and she had to give the jewelry back and everything. And anyway, she was just basically saying, look, like, I don't want to be accused of stealing anything. I want to just make sure.
What may I take? What may I take?
What may I take? But let me tell you this. But when he was like,
she ain't take enough. She walked out one little purse.
And then one point she made a comment about him hitting her or something.
I always knew you would strike me.
He was like, strike you. I am wounded to the soul. And like the way he talked about it, we can discuss whether or not he was actually wounded, but in his world, she wounded him. He was just like, it was almost like it just took his step away.
Like he insists on people understanding the nuance of him, but he doesn't want to understand the nuance of anyone else. So he is offended when she doesn't understand what his boundaries are. Meanwhile, he don't even know her age. You know, and it's like, you know,
and what? You've been talking about me like a dog since the day I met you.
And that was also something that was interesting into the male psyche. Interesting side of the male psyche was when we're looking at these two men, we're talking about, like, she talks about Pickering a lot. And Pickering is the one who's always
he's kind.
Coming to her.
He's a gentleman.
But the funny thing is that when he was on the phone, or when he was about to call, and Henry Higgins was talking to Mrs. Pierce, and basically the conversation was, you know, you don't own her. He was like, yes, I did. I paid £5 for her. You know, but here's the thing.
He said
Pickering said, quite right. Which I'm just saying that.
Listen, Pickering.
But I think at the end of the day, Pickering in this musical, it was laughable. Like,
he never said you did a good job.
He didn't.
But Pickering is just polite. That's the thing.
Well, that was the point I wanted to get to. That there are a lot of men who put on a veneer that stays in place most of the time.
Right.
But when you have listen, if somebody would have asked Pierce directly,
Pickering.
If somebody would have asked Pickering directly about Eliza's contribution, he would have answered correctly because he would have put his veneer up.
That's right.
But in the so I'm just saying, even the nuance of showing how it is that, look, a lot of guys who even say certain things and say all the right stuff, when it gets down to the real, you know, they have sometimes even worse thought processes than somebody like Mr. Henry Higgins, but it's just that they keep it, you know,
they know how to keep it under wraps.
Exactly.
Yep.
And as do many women. Many women, if
people
only
people.
Listen, if people only knew
out
here. I think one part of it, just to speak to the class part of our conversation, it makes me think about our conversation that we always had in The Wire, where it was like, if this person was put into a different set of circumstances, what would their life have been?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about Eliza Doolittle's, you know, just her life and her strong-willedness and how she was able to really do things and do well. What would she have been like if she was already placed in middle class?
Exactly. And sis, you've given us the perfect note to wrap on, because at the end of the day, a well done story allows you to continue to tell it. You get to keep thinking about it. You get to extend the characters' lives. You get to do the what ifs. And this story was so well told in both of these contexts that we get to do that. We get to wonder what Eliza would have been like. So with all that being said, y'all, I think we have discussed all of the topics. We hit all the categories. I think it's time to vote.
We did a good amount, but really we could talk about this movie, I feel like, for 3
we didn't even talk about the costumes. I mean, we don't even have time to really get into
there's so much
visual.
We could get into.
Oh my gosh.
So much.
There's so much we could get into. But
so let's vote. Let's vote, y'all. Bro does, and we're doing the combo. Does the movie combo Pygmalion and My Fair Lady, do they get your flower bundle?
Yeah, they definitely get my flower because, and I'll tell you, they get my flower combined and they get my flower separately because they were both funny.
Levels.
They were both funny. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to appreciate the first one because of my relationship with the
We've been
second.
in My Fair Lady Land our entire lives.
But the crazy thing is that even though watching the first one made me appreciate the first one, but it also elevated my appreciation for the second one. So I feel like as a combination, because it's like I could still, because I knew the emotions that they were communicating at certain places, I feel like it let me enjoy the Pygmalion better.
Yes.
So as a combination, I feel like they just play off each other very well. And to me, as a matter of fact, like Pygmalion and My Fair Lady, like they should be together. You know, it should be something that almost like, yeah, you watch it's almost like a original and a sequel more than, you know, that feeling.
Block
just
off
like
half
you
your
have,
day, but
just like you would have Terminator, or you know, a movie that has two, you know, Bad Boys 1 and 2, you would have them next to each other in your thing. I think that's how it should be. It should be like Pygmalion, My Fair Lady right next to each other. And I'm also writing a updated adaptation of My Fair Lady. I'll tell you about that.
What's it going to be called? My bro, my super fun bro. All right. Well, anyway,
I don't want to put the idea out there because it's super awesome. Okay. And I can't wait to tell y'all.
Y'all get ready. Wright Perspective
Get ready. Buckle up.
It's gonna be called Women Better Listen.
It's gonna be called Harry Higgins Was Right the entire time. By Aubrey Wright.
Harry Higgins 101.
Such an unfortunate opinion of me.
And exactly. And so I will give this. I'm gonna give.
Our brother loves us so much, and we know it.
He just enjoys our company, and so I'm gonna give both of these movies separately. They do both separately get a flower bundle, and together they get a flower bundle. And I agree with you, bro. They're so good, and they're also unique enough that they can always be side by side. Even though they are the same stories, same characters, they are still unique enough to be watching a marathon. They are.
And both of them make you get the other one better.
That's absolutely. Great. They enhance each other big time.
Yes.
And I want to just say,
they enhance each other.
When you're talking about casting, I mean, who is the casting director? Somebody look it up in the world. Because let me just say, the casting for both of these movies, excellent. Eliza's father, okay, Pickering,
perfect.
Mrs. Pierce, the mom, Higgins' mom. Look, listen, they picked.
She needed an award for supporting character.
Oh, they might have won for supporting. I didn't look at I can't remember what the list was. Oh, listen, okay. The casting, amazing. And because both stories were so well done. Oh, and we talked about this. We talked about the fact that when something is a classic, you forgive it for the ways that culturally you might disagree with it. And so, yes, these were also two of the whitest movies that have ever been whited. And listen, you don't even think about it.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, because you don't think about it. Okay.
I was like, man, we not even in the background. We not at the theater.
I mean, we ain't a doorman.
The door open.
We ain't riding. We ain't pushing the horse buggy. We ain't even in the flowers.
We
don't even get to be gutter snipes. We ain't in there at all. We ain't even in the gutter snipe. But you know what?
You know what? I did notice that in one that all the servants were white, and I noticed that
everybody.
But listen,
this was really
in my mind.
Class.
I literally thought I preferred it that way because if they had just popped in a black servant or something, that would have bothered me. So I would have preferred it. But
that would have probably been more realistic. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that's our point. The point is when it's a classic, you can allow it to be what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's why I would give this movie my flower bundle. Sis, take us home.
So I echo just, giving flower bundles together and separately. What made it a classic for me was just that I believe it is something that if we played it right now, it would generate this type of discussion. Mm-hmm. It would generate this type of conversation. I don't like when movies are just one thing. I love when they're layered, even in it being a comedy and a musical. It is layered and nuanced. And so I really appreciate that about this this set of movies, Pygmalion and My Fair Lady.
Well, y'all, that's it. The votes are in. Pygmalion and My Fair Lady are classics from the Wright Perspective. Hey, y'all, we forgot to huddle. We didn't even text about what the next movie would be. But here's the suggestion. And again, y'all, this is one of our loyal has listened to every single one of our podcasts. Has recommended that we do a duo, which is Baby Boy and Boys in the Hood. And he was saying that they're by the same writer and director, the same writer and director for both. But one is a boy raised by his mom, and one is a boy raised by his dad.
All right, sounds good.
This is going to be good. Are y'all up for that?
Listen, the question is, are you? Listen, Aubrey and I have both seen those movies.
Okay, I have pretended to see them.
I never saw. I never saw.
Let me let you go.
You never seen Baby Boy?
Never saw Baby Boy.
Shout out to BT. I've playing it on rotation for the last 87 years.
I feel like I kind of watched Boys in the Hood, like on TV.
But you know what?
Like it was.
I'm glad to be forced to watch it because it's one of the.
It's important.
I think it may be the only hood movie I never saw, but yeah. So I'm excited to do that, and it'll be interesting to see because it'll be the first time. So yes, let's do it.
It's gonna be good.
Okay, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on The Wright Perspective. Bye.